Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're here again with some new content for you. We're going to shake things up a little bit and do it a little differently today. You know, in the spirit of some of the great movies coming out right now at this time of year, we want to take this opportunity to talk about the one, the only, the it of cinema history, Star Wars. Star Wars!
Welcome to the Cinema Club.
R&R movies.
We just wanted to sit down and rank the franchise that has spanned over 4 decades,
Wow, insert witty joke here.
with 11 feature films, several TV shows, a handful of excellent video games, and hundreds of books.
Not to mention an astounding net worth of over $42 billion.
And that's enough money to feed all the starving children in the world. Commence ranking now.
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Alright, we're going to kick this thing off right. Starting at the bottom, number 11, I think that we can all agree on this, would be Solo. Directed by Ron Howard, was written by Lawrence Kasdan, a man that's written several of the films, and his son or brother, Jonathan Kasdan, some family member. I think it's pretty clear why we put Solo at the bottom. It's one of the least liked movies in the entire franchise. It went through very troubled production. I believe they changed directors 2 or 3 times in the midst of shooting.
And when it comes down to brass tacks, letting a small child that's stuck in a world of black and white in a small town called Mayberry direct a movie is probably not a wise decision. I mean, kids don't know that much about movies, and they certainly don't know that much about Star Wars that's been going on since the late 70s. I think we all agree that Solo would have been better if they had just used Harrison Ford to play Han Solo with no makeup or CGI. The only good thing about Solo was Donald Glover's performance as Lando.
Moving on.
Then we come to The Last Jedi in place number 10, which was written and directed by Rian Johnson, a guy who's known to waste every single bit of potential that is handed to him.
I want to say that I don't necessarily agree with that completely.
There's a lot of issues we can take with this movie, and I just like to say that if you could destroy an entire fleet of ships by just driving light speed through them, how are there still wars being fought?
I think, though, that his attempt was obviously to try to break the expectations of what we expected, and when he did, he kind of null and voided and nearly killed the trilogy. Next up at number 9, we have Attack of the Clones, which was directed by George Lucas and written by George Lucas and Jonathan Hale. This movie is probably one of our least favorites, definitely our least favorite out of the trilogy, the prequel trilogy. The best part of this film would probably be the lightsaber fight between Yoda and Count Dooku.
Yeah, in fact, that's the only reason why it's ranked where it was, because the fight scene at the end of The Last Jedi was pretty cool too, but the one in the end of Attack of the Clones is just a little bit better. This movie just doesn't really have anything to offer.
Yeah, it's a lot of filler, I feel, and maybe just to try to pull us into what would be the third movie in the trilogy. A lot of dead space, things like that. But it does give you some crucial details that do kind of lay out the story for the future of what it is.
It's true, but like you said, it is just filler. Next up, coming in 8th place, we have Rogue One. Directed by Gareth Edwards. It was written by Chris Weitz, Tony Gilroy, John Knoll, Gary Whitta. 4 dudes you've never heard of in your entire life.
Yes, maybe never again. Not a huge fan of Rogue One.
I think the film was excellent. I think it took a story that we didn't even really have to care about and made it super interesting. Gave us a bunch of characters we didn't know whatsoever. Made them all awesome. And it has one of the only chances we get to see Darth Vader when he's at his peak abilities.
I would say that the greatest part of the movie is the last 5 seconds connected to A New Hope. You know what kind of story you're dealing with whenever you have to kill off all your main characters at the end of the story because they can't exist in the world after. That speaks for itself. And this movie could literally be erased from the saga and we would never know.
You're just a joy kill.
Next up at number 7, we have the newest addition to the saga, The Rise of Skywalker, directed by J.J. Abrams, written by J.J. Abrams, Chris Terrero, and written by Colin Trevorrow also. We have very different opinions about this particular movie in the saga, and I would like to say that I think it was an utter, complete piece of garbage.
I think it put a big, perfect bow on everything and ended it nicely.
I think that it was super rushed and forced. I feel like they just didn't close it out the way that we wanted it to be done.
I think it was a nice ending, and it ended it for me on a happy note. I'm happy it's over and that we can move on to some new and fresh stories that aren't about the Skywalker boys being dramatic and destroying the whole universe.
I'm also happy that it's over. So that way we don't have to see it anymore.
Oh,
And
man.
we can pretty much delete this trilogy from our mind.
And I just think that some people shouldn't be overcritical and go into movies with super high expectations and judge them from the first 5 seconds of the film and then just hate it because of that first 5 seconds.
I think there was a lot more details than the first 5 seconds to make me hate it.
Moving on.
Next up, coming in 6th on the list, we have The Force Awakens. Now, this movie was an event because it was a reignition of the franchise. It was directed by J.J. Abrams, also written by J.J. Abrams along with, once again, Lawrence Kasdan, and a man named Michael Arndt.
Who you aren't probably going to hear of very much more in Star Wars. The Force Awakens definitely had high expectations, and I feel like going in, we were just excited to see it revive. I think it was a pretty decent film. It didn't really try to break the mold or do anything too dangerous or challenging. It was very safe. It was very safe. It was very safe.
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it. Will you help me?
Yes, anything.
It was very safe.
It was very safe.
It was a formula that we were familiar with, but I think that it worked, and I think that we all enjoyed it.
It was definitely enough to give us some new characters and get us interested in them and liking them.
Coming in at number 5, we have one of my personal favorites, The Revenge of the Sith, directed solely and written solely by George Lucas. This is the ending tie-in that gives us, the complete story and backstory on who is Anakin, which is Darth Vader, and it leaves on a dark note, because obviously it ends right whenever he becomes Vader.
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Not even the younglings survived.
It's a different kind of feeling. I also feel like there's not a lot of waiting around and building story in this one. It just gets right to it. And I think that it's one of the best we have in the whole franchise.
And coming in at number 4, we have A New Hope.
That's no moon. It's a space station.
The very first Star Wars movie ever, written and directed by George Lucas himself.
This movie is it. We wouldn't have anything to base anything off of in the universe. We wouldn't have anything to look at and reference for Star Wars. This started it all. This built the characters. This is the beginning. This is the unfolding.
And this movie had a great story, great characters. It had plenty of good comic relief.
You made a fair move. Screaming about it can't help you.
Let him have it. It's not wise to upset a Wookiee.
But sir, nobody worries about upsetting a droid.
It's because a droid don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when they lose. Wookiees are known to do that.
I see your point, sir. I suggest a new strategy, R2. Let the Wookiee win.
All right, next up at number 3, top 3, we had The Phantom Menace. At number 3, third place. I know. It's written, directed by George Lucas completely. People are going to give us a lot of trash for putting this in third place. But we have a good rant about how we feel about the prequels. Nick, if you will.
And I want to say this. I want to just take a second and talk to all you prequel haters out there, okay? Everybody dishes on the prequels and talks about how horrible they are. Hey Joey, who wrote and directed the first Star Wars movie?
That would be George Lucas.
Okay, who created Star Wars?
I think that's George Lucas.
Who directed Episode 5?
It wasn't George Lucas.
Okay, how about Episode 6?
A guy named Richard Marquand.
Okay, so you're saying Episode 5 and 6 weren't directed by George Lucas, the guy that created Star Wars.
Yeah, they were not.
But the 3 prequels, who directed all 3 of them?
George Lucas did.
And who, for the most part, wrote all 3 of them by himself?
He wrote all 3 of them completely by himself, except for Attack of the Clones. He had a hand from Jonathan Hale.
Okay, so George Lucas, the guy that created Star Wars, made all 3 prequels more so than he did 5 and 6. You can't complain about what the guy that created the universe does with it. It's his universe. He can do what he wants with it. You either like it or you don't. If you don't like it, then I'm sorry to tell you, you're not a Star Wars fan. That's like complaining about what James Cameron would have done with Terminator, or complaining about what James Cameron would have done with the Avatar film. He created the whole thing. He can do what he wants with it. If you don't like it, then you're not a fan of that.
Moving on.
The biggest thing to state here is, number one, we have the best lightsaber battle that we have in the entire saga in this film. And Darth Maul is possibly the coolest Sith that ever lived.
And Obi-Wan is probably one of the best Jedi. I know a lot of other people were more powerful than he was, but this is the only guy we see on screen actually kill Sith Lords and not turn to the dark side because of it.
Yes, not to mention Qui-Gon Jinn.
Alright, coming in at second place is the one, the only Return of the Jedi.
It's a trap!
We know everyone hates the Ewoks, which I still don't understand because I think the Ewoks are great. They make some awesome noises. Yep. And they're cute, they have big eyeballs, they're fuzzy.
We got to see Luke come in and use all kinds of cool new force powers that we had never seen before.
And we get to see that fat guy cry whenever the Rancor dies. I mean, that really was a key moment. What I really think makes this movie stand out is the use of the grackles in the film. There's so many good grackles. When you're watching it, you have to constantly be sitting there on the couch going, watch out for those grackles.
This is held highly esteemed in the franchise by all. I think that in most rankings that we've seen out there, even Return of the Jedi is probably in everyone's top 5 at least. But I think that it ended the first trilogy. It has a ton of amazing tie-ins and resolutions at the end. The way that it pulls it off, it's just solid, good, has a good emotional tie-in. It's a great tie-in and way to end the first franchise, the first trilogy.
And there was nothing better than seeing Anakin be the chosen one that everyone believed he was and bringing balance to the Force.
And finally, drumroll please. The heck was that? Never mind. We have the number 1 pick for our franchise ranking list, and if you know anything about Star Wars, you may already know it, but in case you don't, our number 1 pick would be The Empire Strikes Back, directed by Irvin Kershner, and it was written by George Lucas, Lawrence Kasdan, mentioned many times, and Lee Brackett.
Do we even have to, make reasons?
No. I am your father.
Not true. That's impossible.
The most misquoted movie line in history, but also one of the most infamous.
What is it, a criminal?
Nick, we talked about this. Just because J.K. Simmons said that doesn't mean it's the only definition for the word, okay?
J. Jonah Jameson's, he knows that Spider-Man's a criminal. I want pictures of Spider-Man! I think Hoth is amazing. I mean, you can't think about Star Wars without thinking about that whole scene on the snowy planet.
Yeah, it's even referenced in the MCU.
And Dak dies in the speeder.
And let's not forget the biggest twist in movie history. Come on. The biggest kick to all of this is Vader, V-A-D-E-R, in Dutch means father. It's spoke vader, but it's spelt the same way. Actually means father.
Science. You know what's even crazier is that Darth, an Alaskan, is father.
Really?
No, I just made that up. Alaskans speak English, I'm pretty sure.
No, they speak Alasconian. Alright guys, that's our list, our ranking from 11 to 1.
We hope you think it's terrible and don't care at all.
In case you haven't already, check out our review from The Rise of Skywalker. It came out earlier last week. So make sure you like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube page. At the beginning of the new year, we have some new content, some new stuff coming out. You don't want to miss it. We know that you're dying. You're just so excited. So excited you can't stand it. But calm down. It's coming.
I'm so excited!
Till next time, guys. It's a beautiful day in the cinema hood.
Meh, 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 meh.